Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to The Walk. Today is Sunday, September 3rd, and our message this morning is later than normal. It's not late according to God's timing because I just didn't get the message from the Lord. And it seems like that's happening on Sundays a lot lately. But when I prayed about it, I kept hearing wait. And then all of a sudden, as I kept praying and I was thumbing through my Bible, two Bible verses that I never would have thought to put together came together into this beautiful message. And, once again, this is not something that I could have done on my own. It was completely led by the Holy Spirit. So we're talking about 1 Kings 19, and we looked at that just last week. And this is where Elijah is off on his own. He feels like he's the only prophet left. And the Lord points out to him that he's preserved 7,000. But what we're focusing on today is not that remnant. What we're focusing on is the way that the Lord talks to him. So let's read through this. There he came to a cave and lodged in it. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Now, was this a big, thunderous, demonstrative, big show of God's power? No, this was that still small voice of the Holy Spirit. What are you doing here? And it's that gentle nudge that comes from the Holy Spirit that starts this conversation. And then he says that he's been jealous for the people have betrayed him. And then the Lord tells him, "Go out and stand on the mount before the Lord." And behold, the Lord passed by. So again, he gets that still small voice of the Holy Spirit saying, "Go and stand at the edge." And then the big show of God's power happens. Then God shows up. Then he takes over. The Lord passed, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. So here's this big show of God's power, but he wasn't in all those things. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak, and he went out and he stood at the entrance of the cave. And the voice said again, "What are you doing here?" And Elijah explains again. And then God says, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael king over Syria, and Jehu." So he tells him who will be the kings. "And the one who escapes, yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him." And then the call of Elisha happens right after that. So we have to be aware that, yes, God does move in mighty and demonstrative ways where it's like, no doubt there is God. But he also moves through those still small voice of the Holy Spirit. Now, the next passage we're looking at is in Acts chapter 8, starting in verse 26. And this is where Philip goes to the Ethiopian eunuch. Now, an angel of the Lord said to Philip, "Rise and go toward the south to the road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. This is a desert place." And he rose and he went. He's not even sure what the final destination is. He's just told, go and take this road, and this road goes from this city to this city. It's that gentle, still small voice of the Holy Spirit, and he has no idea what God's about to do. He has no idea what's about to happen. And if you read through the rest of this story, you will see that he hears this eunuch, Ethiopian eunuch, reading the book of Isaiah, and the Spirit tells to Philip in verse 29, "Go over and join this chariot." That's the still small voice of the Holy Spirit. It's just that gentle nudge. Go up to this chariot. So Philip approaches the chariot and says, hey, do you understand what you're reading? And the eunuch says, no, I don't. How could I if nobody explains it to me? And then Philip hops into the chariot with him and explains the entire gospel to him. And that eunuch's eternity is completely changed in that moment. Now, was anybody in the city surrounding aware of this mighty move of God? No. Sometimes those mighty moves of God are so quiet and so peaceful that just the people that are involved in it are aware of it. But it's still a mighty move of God, and we've got to be aware of that. We've got to be keeping our ear in tune with that still small voice of the Holy Spirit, because when we are, that's where victory is found. That's where we end up leaving a mark on this planet and changing people's eternities, not because of our own strength, but because God used us as the catalyst to change that eternity. Be willing to step up and recognize that just because mountains didn't shake, just because there wasn't a huge earthquake, just because everyone in the city wasn't aware of it, doesn't mean that God didn't move. Doesn't mean that it's not a mighty move of God. It is still a mighty move of God. Be willing to step up at that moment's notice. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.